There is an emotion and an energy connected to transferring money between people. It happens when you buy something at the grocery, when you buy clothing for yourself. Mm-hmm. If you are checking out at the clothing store, do you think, wow, I worked really hard and now I can deserve this incredible thing and I provide it for myself? Or do you feel like, maybe I shouldn't spend that much money? Right.
That's what I'm saying.
So now imagine doing that once a month with your ex.
Okay.
Right? I have to ask you for money every month. That was what our agreement was in our marriage too. That I always had to come to you and be like, is it okay if I spend this much on a dress? So now every month I'm waiting for you to pay me.
It's a control thing.
And they don't feel good about it. She spent too much in our marriage. She was always spending too much. And now look at this. I'm not even married to her and I'm still paying for her clothes.
Is there anything scarier than realizing you need a divorce and then speaking to an attorney and then realizing now you have no idea what to ask for, what to do, what to say, what you're entitled to? All of it can feel really, really overwhelming. And it's probably why a lot of people don't make any moves to begin with. But like I always say, knowledge is power. And the more knowledge we bring to you, the more powerful you're going to feel, which is why I'm so excited to have my friend Rachel with us today. Rachel is a senior associate at GWHS Law. She's a family attorney for a long time now, helping people uncouple in the best and most informed way possible. And she herself is a divorced co-parent. So she's got a lot to bring to the table, including what mistakes not to make, what to forget to ask for, what's really reasonable to fight over. All of these things will probably help you a lot before you just go into battle unprepared. I'm so excited for you to meet Rachel. Rachel, I'm so happy you're here.
I'm so happy that you invited me. Thank you so much.
I know. It's like a play date. Like
it is. Well, that is how this started. We said, let's hang out.
It's a divorce play date. And I feel like you and I met years ago.
We did.
Under different circumstances.
I had a different career.
You had a different career. You had a different spouse. Was that before you were married or after?
I think we met before I was married. So you knew me through my whole marriage.
Right.
And before I had a child. And now I have.
Then you were with child. And now you are with child without partner. But hey, it happens, obviously.
Exactly.
What is like the actual...
To the best of us.
Cheers. What is like the actual most recent divorce statistic? Do we know?
I think it's over 50% because second marriages are at a much higher rate than first marriages.
Right.
And same-sex female couples are at the highest rate of divorce.
Same-sex female couples are higher than same-sex male couples?
Yes. Yes.
Interesting.
Yes.
That
it is interesting.
That could be a whole podcast in itself.
There's really interesting statistics around second marriages and same-sex marriages and the heightened divorce rates in those marriages.
Okay. Well, I'd like to say that if the divorce process were easier or less scary, the first rate statistic would probably be much higher. I think so many people I talk to and I meet will say, I want to go, but I'm just like terrified of the whole legal process, or it's going to be too expensive, or it's just not worth the headache and I'd rather be unhappy.
And I think that you're completely right and that people stay in marriages for different reasons. One of the reasons I think that we've talked about and that you talk about a lot is they don't know what's going to happen next. And so the devil I know is better than the devil I don't. And I know what my life is like now. I know what it's like financially. I know how much I see my kids. I know I don't really like my spouse and that maybe they're not so nice to me or I don't feel seen by them or I don't feel affectionate with them, but I'm not alone.
Right. For sure. And look, it's easier said than done. You've done it. I've done it. It is a very uncomfortable process, but it's temporary versus like going through anything you want to get to in life that's going to eventually lead to success and happiness is probably going to be a little uncomfortable in the process. But I have found that and this is why I'm so glad we're talking, because people will say to me, oh yeah, my ex and I talked and we want to separate and we want to do things amicably. And then they go and lawyer up and amicable, went out the window, exit stage left. And if they're not going into this legal process prepared, it's like they get steamrolled by...
There's different kinds of lawyers.
Yeah, let's
talk
about that.
Different lawyers handle things different ways. And I think it's really, 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 really important when you go and have a consultation with a lawyer, whether it's because you're thinking, I might want to get divorced and I'm not sure what that looks like. Or we have people who come in and say, I'm having all these problems in my marriage. What am I supposed to do now? Maybe the answer is get a post-nuptial agreement. Maybe the answer is separate for a period of time and have a temporary parenting plan during that time. At our firm, we really like to do things pre-suit, which is outside of the litigation system. So it's a couple that says, we're going to get divorced. We know that we're going to get divorced. We're not going to put it in the judicial system yet. We're going to come up with all of the solutions together with our attorneys, and then we're going to file for divorce and at the same time file our marital settlement agreement. It slows things down an enormous amount. And I think that slowing things down generally is a good idea. You want to move through the process, not in a rushed, hurried, anxious way.
I did it because this was 8.5 years ago where I thought the sooner I get it done, the easier life is going to be. And then I was left with a whole host of mistakes in my parenting plan, and life did not then get easier.
Preach.
Right? I know. It's
I separated and got divorced very quickly. My ex-spouse is an attorney also. We actually worked on an enormous amount of the agreement together, and we did a pretty good job. But also we were people who had never been divorced before.
Right.
And so we didn't know what our lives were going to be like. And I know you're going to want to talk about this more, but one of the big things that we didn't think about was we had a daughter who was less than a year old when we got divorced. Well, what's life like when she's 3 years old? Well, what's life like, and I don't know the answer to this, when she's 15 years old and she doesn't want to spend the weekend with either of us?
Right. No, and I fully own for people, because I went through it and I know my clients go through it. In that moment in time, it feels like your child is always going to be this age and it's always going to be like this. And you think you have it figured out at this stage in their lives, right? But that's parenting. Then the next stage, you're like, wait, I kind of don't know what to do now. But you don't, unless you have a lawyer who says to you, think about this, think about that. You don't. I mean, at least I didn't in my experience.
And I had a great lawyer. I really loved I still love my lawyer. We're still friends. And he did a wonderful job for me. It is really hard when you're trying to move very quickly, specifically, to get everything right. And I don't think any parenting plan or marital settlement agreement gets everything right. But certainly if you can slow down a little bit and think about, okay, my daughter's a year old. This is how we want to spend her birthday when she's 1 year old. This is how I want to spend Mother's Day when she's 1 year old. And maybe when she's 5 years old, we don't want to split the day on Mother's Day, or we don't want to split the day on Thanksgiving. Maybe at that point, we're going to be more comfortable to say every other year. The hope is always that your marital settlement agreement and your parenting plan is the floor, and that you with your co-parent can make better decisions for your child as you go along.
I like that metaphor.
It's not always true. It's also your security blanket. It's your insurance.
Right. But, I think the people who need to exercise the parenting plan more are going to be in situations where one just refuses to follow it. So yeah, having it to fall back on is great, as per the parenting plan, which are very scary words to say if you're trying to be amicable. But yeah, in best case scenario, you're flexible. My daughter's coming home from camp Friday.
Yay.
And my husband was like, whose weekend is it when she gets home? I'm like, I don't know. We stopped knowing whose weekend was whose.
Right. And your daughter's older also. So she has more choice, right? She says, I want to have a sleepover with my girlfriends. I want to go away to camp all summer long. Those are things that are not in my parenting.
Those are things that are not in my parent. Because if you would have asked me when she was 2, is she going to sleepaway camp one day? I would have said, absolutely not.
She stays with me forever.
Right. And now here we are. Okay. So I imagine, and I know because I refer clients to lawyers all the time, there's a lot of hemming and hawing. People call you, then they're not ready. Then they'll call you again and they think they're ready to file, and then they're not. What is that process like? How long do people sit on it for a while?
I can tell very quickly when that's going to be someone.
Okay.
When someone comes in,
fair enough.
10 minutes in, I had a consultation last week with a partner of mine, and we talked to her, and they will tell you pretty open. It's very rare that someone is saying, I really want to file for divorce, and then we never hear from them again, and they never file. Mm-hmm. It is much more common that someone will come in and say, I want to file for divorce, and 20 minutes into the consultation, they say, well, but first we're going to go do 3 months of therapy, and we're going to do this, this, and this, and I just wanted to get information from you. And I think that's great. Get information. And there's no shame in that, coming to a lawyer and saying, what would it look like? I want to know as much as possible. What would it look like if I got divorced? What would you need from me? Mm-hmm. What financial documents do I need to come up with? What would time sharing look like with my 12-year-old and 15-year-old? Do they get to stay in the same school that they've been in? Mm-hmm. Are they going to live with me? Am I going to end up with my house? And we can't answer those questions definitively, but we can start to talk through, okay, what does your life look like if you file or if you do something pre-suit? And what does your life look like after you get divorced? How, can you afford that?
Right.
Have you not worked in 10 years?
This is good because one of the questions I wanted to ask you is like, what do you wish, knowing what you know and doing the work that you do and also having been divorced, what do you wish clients understood about divorce before they filed?
So my divorce financially was very easy. We didn't have really complicated assets. We, had met each other as state attorneys. We worked for the government. We had bought a home together a couple years before we got divorced. Everything we had was a marital asset. We didn't own separate businesses. We're both attorneys. We're W-2 employees. Like, this is a very financially very simple divorce.
Mm-hmm.
People who have more complex finances should try to get their arms around them before you come to us, if possible. And if not, be ready to talk through that idea with me. My husband has 3 businesses. 1 was started before we got married. 2 were started when we were married. He owned a home before we got married. He sold that home. We bought our marital home. Do you know how your home is titled?
Okay, but here's the thing, Airball. Most petitioners the higher number of petitioners are women. And most often, at least in the ones that I work with, they're like, I don't know where any money is. I don't know what's what. I don't know how much they're making. I've been just stay-at-home momming, which is beautiful in its own way, but
Absolutely.
But I don't know. So how do I come to an attorney and say, here's what we've got?
So that's a really scary place to be in.
Oh,
And I think that sometimes that makes people avoid us. Like, I don't know the answers to the quiz that I'm going to get at the lawyer's office, so I'm just not going to go to the lawyer and I'm not going to deal with it.
precisely.
Some of it is public record. How your home is titled is public record. You can go on your county, for us, Miami-Dade County, for me, Miami-Dade County Property Appraiser's Office. You can look up anyone's address and find out how it's
today
titled.
years old. Okay. Mm-hmm.
I do it all the time. Someone will come in and say, I don't know if my home is in a trust or if it's titled to me and my husband. Give me 2 seconds. I'll tell you the answer.
Oh my God.
That's in Florida. Florida has something called the Sunshine Law. We have very, very, very open records.
Mm-hmm.
Other states may be different. But
Okay.
I'm telling you, I practice in Florida, so this is what I'm dealing with. Every county has a property appraiser's office. Everything is online.
Okay. So
that's
that's
fun.
a good jumping off point. I know what my house is worth.
And how it's titled. Is it your house or is it your husband's house? Is it a trust's house? Is it a business's house?
If let's say you got married and you think it's our house, we bought it together, but your name was never on the title or the deed, you have no rights to it?
It's complicated.
Okay.
That's always the answer for lawyers, right? It's complicated. If you're paying for it out of marital assets, which your income when you're married is a marital asset, then it's your home together. There's a kind of deeper and more intricate question of how is the home originally funded? Do you have a prenuptial agreement that separates out that home? Do you have a postnuptial agreement that separates out that home? Was it a gift given to you or your spouse during the time of the marriage? It gets a little more complicated, but title's a really good way to look at things. Title will control unless there's another document that's saying title doesn't control.
Mm-hmm.
And how you paid for things. Just thinking of it as not complex as I can, how you paid for things matters. So money that you made during your marriage is marital monies. And if you paid for your home with that money, it's partially yours, unless there's something else saying it's not.
Right. Okay. Got it. That helps. I remember. So, and I think this is very classic to women. There's like a shame around spending money, right? So like when I was filling out my financial affidavit, I felt like I was like divulging secrets and was going to be judged and
How much are you
shamed.
spending on your maintenance?
And I remember, I think it was my attorney who was like, you get your period every month, you buy a box of tampons, now you buy 2. Like round up. And I was like, but, and she was like, nobody's judging you on this. It's just to get a clearer picture. And it helps you too to understand what you need monthly to survive. But so many women will be like, I don't want to. How much Botox I get.
I don't want to see that I'm coloring my hair and I get a blowout every week.
Right.
If that's your that financial affidavit is initially how you're going to start looking at alimony if you're entitled to alimony. And so you want your real expenses. Don't cut yourself short. Everything is negotiable. By the way, your lifestyle might be adjusted. If you're going to get your nails done once a week, maybe you're not getting your nails done once a week. So when we're calculating your alimony, it's like, well, once every 3 weeks seems more reasonable.
Yeah.
That's what we can really ask for.
Right. I see these like divorce or like celebrity like payouts that are like, she gets $40,000 a month to, for her maintenance. And I'm like, I would love that. Imagine having the balls to spend that and like actually own up to it. Okay. So big mistake in this process would be like lowering your worth. metaphorically and
in
physically.
the world. That's a big mistake.
Wow.
But certainly here, right? Don't say that you're because you're embarrassed because you and your spouse fought about how much you were spending on your hair, your nails, your car, your groceries, whatever. This is not the time to try to please your spouse with how much you were spending. Be real.
Fair enough. But many women who are unhappy in their marriages and are threatening divorce, and that fight happens over and over, and then the husband says, great, leave me. I'm not going to give you a dime. Does it really work like that?
No, that's not the law, right? But that is scary. That feels scary.
But that keeps a lot. People will say to me, I want to leave, but he said he won't give me anything. And I'm like, I don't know that it works like that.
So alimony and child support it's a mathematical calculation. It's just not all that complicated.
It's not based on opinion.
It's definitely not based on opinion. Alimony in Florida is the lesser of two numbers. One, your actual need. So you look at all of the sources of income that you have. That can be your job. That can be a trust fund that you're regularly getting distributions from. That can be dividends from, investments that you have. Every amount of income that you're getting, every amount of income that your spouse is getting. What's your actual need after you look at all of your actual income? So maybe you need an extra $3,000 a month. You look at 35% of the difference of your incomes. The lower number of those two, the $3,000 or the 35% of the difference in your incomes. How long are you going to get that alimony for? It depends how long you were married for. There's under 10-year marriages, 10 to 20-year marriages, and over 20-year marriages. And each one has a percentage of time of your marriage that you'll get, that you're entitled. That's the maximum duration of alimony.
Right. I mean, the math isn't mathing
That's
in my head because this is, I'm like, okay, cool, number.
Cool. It's the point that I'm trying to make to you is not that you should try to figure out the calculation on your own. It's that there is a calculation that the courts look at. The court doesn't say, well, how much does Joe want to give Mary? Okay, he seems more reasonable. He feels like he was a better spender during the marriage. We're going to listen to Joe.
That's helpful. No, I think women in general just feel a lot of shame around what they spend, honestly. I mean, I still personally, I'm like, oh my God, am I really spending this much on, I don't know, home repairs this month? Like spending is looked at negatively, I think, when a woman's doing it.
Yes. And it brings me to something that I would love to talk to you about because I had a long conversation about it over the weekend, and it's related to alimony. And it's lump sum alimony. So I was at a workshop over the weekend, this 5-day long course that I took. And one of my workshop leaders was a judge in Seminole County who is a board certified marital and family law attorney. So he practiced in this area for a long time. So he is really immersed in our world. And he said, I think that lump sum alimony is one of the most underutilized tools. And I said, I completely agree with you.
Tell me why. So lump sum alimony is instead of getting that monthly check from your ex, you're just taking it all up front.
Yeah, maybe you get it in 4 payments.
Do you have to pay taxes on it?
Alimony is not tax deductible to the payee or taxable to the recipient.
Got it.
Neither.
Okay.
So that's different than some other things which are tax affected, like if you take a distribution from a 401k. There is an emotion and an energy connected to transferring money between people. It happens when you buy something at the grocery, when you buy clothing for yourself. If you are checking out at the clothing store, do you think, wow, I worked really hard and now I can deserve this incredible thing and I provide it for myself? Or do you feel like, maybe I shouldn't spend that much money? Right.
That's what I'm saying.
So now imagine doing that once a month with your ex.
Okay.
Right? I have to ask you for money every month. That was what our agreement was in our marriage too. That I always had to come to you and be like, is it okay if I spend this much on a dress? So now every month I'm waiting for you to pay me.
It's a control thing.
And they don't feel good about it. She spent too much in our marriage. She was always spending too much. And now look at this. I'm not even married to her and I'm still paying for her clothes. I'm still paying for her Botox.
You can't just put it on auto pay?
You can, but you still see it coming in and out of your bank account.
Right. That is a really good point because I say it all the time, you can go to court, you can sign a paper, get divorced, but the emotional piece, that's the real work. Emotionally feeling free and separated from this person, I guess there's that little thing connecting you still. Wow, I never thought about that.
I feel very strongly about this. I also recognize that it's a privilege to have that much money to be able to pay someone out. And it really depends on the length of your marriage. If you were in a short-term marriage and you're paying for 2 years of alimony, it's much easier to do than if you were married for 25 years and you're paying for, 18 years of alimony. That's a much bigger number.
Right. Absolutely. Okay. So financially, get it all out there, get it all up front. What are some things that people or your clients you've had to remind them, hey, you got to ask for this, or you have to factor in this idea? Like, what are people forgetting because they're just so nervous to get it all done?
So I think we started talking about the financial part is actually easier, right? It's pretty cut and dry. You look at all of your assets, you say, what's theirs, what's mine, what is both of ours, and we split it up. You put it in a chart. I mean, It's not super. It is complicated, but it's not like rocket science. You can do it. If it's really complicated, you start to build a team, right? So like you're a team member in divorces. You are talking to women about how to psychologically be in their divorce, how to psychologically be in their co-parenting relationship. A forensic accountant could be on your team. Someone who's going to go through all of your credit card bills and go through all of your bank statements. Ooh, that's scary, right?
This is why I love the collaborative divorce method.
Yes,
I feel like that should be standard.
I have feelings on collaborative. I would love to talk about it.
Okay. Good or bad ones?
Okay, so collaborative divorce is this concept.
I took a whole course on it.
Yeah, I'm going to. I want to get trained in it. I think that there's some skills that are a part of it that are wonderful. There are people, and I was with some of them over the weekend, who believe that collaborative should be mandated and that you should have to start in collaborative. I don't believe that. I think that there are certain relationships that don't work well.
So
a very
collaborative
controlling,
divorce,
narcissistic spouse can't go into it.
No. And what happens is so a collaborative divorce is essentially each person has a lawyer who the lawyers work together instead of against each other. There's a facilitator who is usually a mental health professional who will help you make best decisions for the kids and sort of oversee the process. A financial professional. So you've got a whole team working together with you, not trying to like bait and switch. And it's beautiful. But if you go through that whole process and you can't come to an agreement, it's null and void. And then you have to start from scratch.
So everyone signs a contract that they're going to be invested in this process, essentially. That is what collaborative professionals will tell you is the glue of collaborative, is that you lose all of your professionals if you can't come to a resolution. So it stops people from being so litigious, right? If I'm saying, well, I really want this plan, and you're saying, well, that plan was for my grandmother and it's so important to me. Like, do we want to get new lawyers and new forensic accountants and new mental health professionals and a new parenting coordinator?
Because we spent
just give up on
all this money already and we're going to fight over a plan. Right. Yeah.
It gets you out of the weeds.
Yeah. So you're right. I mean, you have to know who you're dealing with. If you are not dealing with a reasonable person, a collaborative divorce process probably wouldn't be the best thing. But, I don't know. You tell us. You're the expert.
I don't know an expert. It's just not for everyone. There's different things that are for different people. Pre-suit is for some people and it's not for other people. If you have a spouse that's trying to flee the jurisdiction, pre-suit's not for you. Pre-suit to me is sort of a middle ground between collaborative and what we call cooperative, which is like traditional litigation, filing your case, serving your ex-spouse. Pre-suit's a little bit in the middle. I want to work with you, but we're going to have our own lawyers. We might have a financial issue that we each need to have our own forensic accountants because you're dissipating our marital assets in some manner from gambling, from a girlfriend, whatever. It's a middle ground to that. I think that there are some principles to collaborative that are really good. And one of those principles is about hiring other professionals to help you. You can still use neutral professionals in a cooperative divorce. You can say, we don't really have no one thinks that anyone stole money, but we do have these businesses that need to be valued. And we don't know how to do that on our own. And our attorneys and paralegals can't do that. Let's hire one forensic accountant and figure out how much of this business was premarital, what the marital portion is. Okay, no problem.
If you're like me, you could definitely use some extra cash right now. So if you're sitting on old engagement jewelry that's been collecting dust in a drawer that you're like, why do I even still have this? I've got news for you. The experts at Worthy can help you turn that into cash. The cash you could probably use right now on your single parenting journey. It's risk-free, it's fast, literally no more than 2 weeks until you are joining one of the 80,000 people who have already had their jewelry turned into cash. Thousands of people have left verified 5-star reviews. This is a legit process that will make you feel so much lighter and your pockets a lot fuller. Trust me, these guys are the real deal. So all you need to do is visit worthy.com/moms, and I'm going to give you an extra $100 on me if your jewelry sells for over $1,500. That's worthy.com/moms, and I've got you covered.
For me, the best part, and I want to segue into this now, is the perspective it gives the parents on the child, because every divorce situation, you have two people going in, whether it's collaborative or it's litigious or whatever it is, you have two people going in with this, they're on the defense. They're trying to protect themselves. It's all very self-serving, right? Because I'm hurt, you're hurt. This is mine. No, this is mine. I want, and it's like there's little kids here like, hello,
Yeah.
and nobody is forcing you to look through their lens unless you work with, you know, an outside person like myself, or you have a parenting coordinator on the collaborative end, which isn't very popular yet. So, you know, how many times are you having to be, and I know you're a good lawyer, so you would do this, but how often do you have to like reframe for clients? Like, hey, wait, this isn't about you or him or her. Tell me about the kids.
So I had a lawyer when I was getting divorced who used to say this to me, and I now tell this story to clients all the time, and I say it to them. I would say, I want this, and I want to get this, and this is how I want things to go, and this is how we should structure this. And it's very hard because I am a lawyer who practices in this area getting divorced, right? And he would say, that sounds incredible, and please let me know the lawyer that is able to get that for you, because that would be unbelievable if you could get that.
Right.
Okay, you're right. That is unbelievable. So we're not going to get that. And he would really, I think that is the role of a lawyer, a good lawyer who really takes on that role of counselor, is to say, it would be great if you could have 100% time sharing with your daughter. And whenever you and her felt like it was the best thing for her to go to the other parent, you could make that decision alone. You'd get just parent by yourself. That's not happening.
Okay, but do you know how many lawyers would be like, yeah, let's fight for it because they're a narcissist.
Yes.
And you're like, really? Okay. And you're being completely misled because
Yes.
someone wants to drag this case on. That happens a lot. What are some signs people can look for if they realize their lawyer's completely taking advantage of a situation?
I think when you're doing your consultation, your lawyer should disagree with you sometimes. Your lawyer should say, you're not going to want to hear this, but here's what's real. If you come in and you say, here's how we're going to do parenting plan. I'm going to have all week long and every other weekend, and my ex is going to have every other weekend and a weekend this summer. Well, in Florida, we have a presumption of 50-50 time sharing. So unless your ex-spouse says, this is what I want, that's not happening. No court is giving you that.
So if a lawyer is like overpromising, like, yeah, we'll definitely get you that. Red flag?
Yeah.
Yeah, for
Right?
sure.
If anyone's overpromising.
Right.
Red flag.
How about the lawyer who's like, I've got you and I love to go to court?
I love being in court. Let's be real. I was a jury trial girl. Like I was
Fine, but
criminal.
can't the majority of these things be
They
settled out
should.
of court?
Statistically, they are. So the question is, how much money do you want to spend on it before it settles out of court? Because it's going to. I think our statistic is 90% now don't go to trial.
That's
So
beautiful.
that's you,
your
most likely.
statistic in your firm.
No, that is the
Okay.
Florida statistic, I believe. Our firm is lower than that.
I love
We're
that.
not in court a lot.
I love that. You shouldn't, I think people who are not divorced or have this idea of divorce from watching movies or, just the negative connotation it has in society, imagines themselves in court in front of a judge with two lawyers yelling and screaming. And I'm like, wait, but it doesn't have to get to that. But people will say, oh, my lawyer thinks we should go to trial over this. And I'm like, from 50-50 to 60-40, you're going to go spend
Right.
$100,000 in
Right.
court for one day on the calendar per week.
And that, by the way, is really where it lands most of the time, unless it's that it ends up somewhere between 60 and 40 because there's a presumption of 50-50. I don't think it's a great presumption. I think it's not a good statute, whatever. That's a different conversation.
Well, but that's fair because I think the younger your kids are, the harder a split is going to be. And, I've had clients whose 6 months old have 6 month olds. I had one with twins. She's still breastfeeding, but there's 50, like, how do you?
Right. And this is what I try to remind clients of. You hate your spouse right now. They're the worst person you've ever met. You can't believe that everyone has a personality disorder.
But to be fair, if you are dealing with one, it does make this that much harder and scarier.
Absolutely.
So give yourself grace.
And I also believe that a lot of people have narcissistic traits.
That all come out when your ego is bruised.
100%.
In a divorce.
So I will often say to clients, I know the law part. I don't need you to help me calculate alimony. I don't need you to figure out most of a parenting plan, but you know your ex-spouse. So I will help you. I'll ghostwrite for you if you want me to, and I'll help you think through, be a thought partner with you about how to have conversations with your ex-spouse. But this is someone that you loved. You fell in love with this person. You married them because you thought they were a great person. Then you had a child with them because you thought they were wonderful and were going to be a good parent with you. Most of the time. I understand there are exceptions to what I'm saying. And as much as you can to bring yourself back into that, that you had some respect for this person and that they're on their worst behavior. And so you don't have to be on your worst behavior.
Right. We need one sane person because as we know, children need one stable and reasonable caregiver to thrive. But I had a professor in my marriage and family therapy program a few years ago, actually the one who taught the collaborative course. She's a parenting coordinator on a collaborative team, who did something. She taught us something that I thought was so great. She said, if you're going to work with a client in any capacity who is divorcing and trying to figure out a parenting plan, and everyone's like at each other's throats, bring the child into the room. Not literally, but ask both parents to bring in their favorite picture of them with their child.
That.
And she said every time she would do it, the mood would soften.
Yeah.
Like it just was like a reminder of like, you're not here for you. You know, I'll never forget my daughter. I want to say it was a couple years ago at this point, and I shared this example on social media, how it was my weekend and her dad got tickets to like a messy game, an Inter Miami game, you know, a soccer game, and Bella played soccer at the time. So he said, I got these tickets. Do you mind if I take her? I'm like, of course not. That's amazing. Go. What am I going to say? It's my Friday night. Right. And then he's going to say to Bella, I wanted to take you, but mommy didn't let me. No way. So when I'm telling Bella about, you're going to go with daddy. And she's, you know, little kids get rigid. They like their schedule. Yes. She's like, but it's your weekend. And I was like, baby, it's your life. What do you mean? It's not my weekend, Dad. It's your life. You just moved between two houses, you know, and like reinforcing that fact to her is also important to reinforce to these parents who think in this mindset of like percentages, like your child's not a timeshare in the south of France. No, really.
But that is actually what you just
the
said
library book
is a phrase that I say to myself all the time. This is my daughter's time. This is not my time. This is my time to be her chauffeur. This is my time to provide food for her. This is my time to make sure that she's safe and happy, but it's all her time. And I also recognize it is very hard to be the only person who does that. That you are the only person who's thinking, my ex invited her to a messy game, and so of course she should go. It's so fun. They're going to have the best time. And then you're talking up your spouse. You're going to have so much fun at dad's house. It's going to be great. And then you say, hey, I have a brunch with my girlfriends and all their daughters. Would it be okay if I had an extra hour? And he's like, that's my time.
Yeah. And you're like, but
I just gave you 12 extra hours of my time, right? And then you get into that kind of like,
which happens usually. Yeah.
And I just try to remind myself, and I try to help clients remember this, that it's all their time. So if your child's going to miss out on some things with you if you have a spouse that's ex-spouse that's very rigid and doesn't want to do anything but the parenting plan except when it's to their advantage. You're trying to give your child the most positive opportunities available to them. And so they're missing out on one with you, but they're getting one with them.
Well, another thing I think that should be standard in the divorce process when you are splitting up a life and there are children involved. Have you heard of the Children's Bill of Rights in divorce? I talk about it all the time. Dr. Robert Emery. It's not an actual legal document, so don't ask the judge for it. But I remember when my daughter was very, very young and we went to see a co-parenting therapist, it was printed out and like left there for us. And this psychologist put together what he thinks are like the things that should, like, a commandments for children in divorce, what they should be entitled to. And the number one thing is the right to be a kid. Number two is a life that is as close to what it would have been had the parents stayed married. And I feel like if that were printed alongside the standard state parenting plan that your lawyer is going to hand you, the perspective would shift so much. So going back to taking things to court, more people are in court, end up in court fighting over money or kids.
I think it's pretty even, frankly, and I don't have a statistic on that, but my feeling on what I'm doing, I think that there's more post-judgment. So after you get divorced, issues around kids. Post-judgment money issues are, they didn't pay child support, they didn't pay their alimony. And generally that's going to get resolved before you go to court because it's so expensive to litigate.
But why are people going back to court after the divorce?
Because they didn't think about the future.
Because of the poorly written parenting plan?
Sure. I don't want to knock everyone in my profession, but because they were focused on, and I'm guilty of it.
And I'm guilty of it.
10-month-old.
Right.
And all I can think about is that she's 10 months old and what life should be like for a 10-month-old. And I still don't know. We're going to come up with issues and we haven't gotten there yet. And I hope that my ex-wife and I are in a place where we can just figure it out on our own. And I think that we will be. We're really working our way towards being really cooperative co-parents with each other. But we're starting to see it come up. We're like, Mother's Day, we both want to be with her. Millie has 2 moms. So both moms want to be with her Mother's Day.
Right.
It kind of sucks for both of us, actually, because one of us wakes up with her in the morning, one of us doesn't. I really prefer to be the one who doesn't. That is like a gift for me on Mother's Day, is to go out the night before and sleep in and not get up with her in the morning. Great. But then at some point in the afternoon, it's kind of a disruption. She's still napping. The other parent has to stop whatever they were doing. They were enjoying time with their family and their mom. Now you have to stop and drop off at the other parent's. It's a pain.
It's a pain.
It's a real, and I don't know the solution to that, which is this child has two mothers and she wants to be with both of them. She wants to be with both of them. We both want to be with her. It's a problem though.
Right. Right. And it's like I said, when we were talking about this off camera, if the situation were you were in a hetero marriage, no brainer, mom gets Mother's Day. But for you guys to do an every other year type of thing, like she's got two moms.
Yes, we split Father's Day too. Because we have men in our lives. She has
that's true.
3 grandfathers and she has uncles and, there's other people in her life.
But yeah, you don't think about these things. And so now you're years past finalizing your divorce. This parenting plan is just not working. Is the risk really worth the reward to go to court and argue over something and now put it in the judge's hands? And
so most judges are going to make you mediate anyway. So if you were a client who came to me and said, we'd made this parenting plan 2 years ago, it is not working. My kid is miserable. We're doing 2-2-3, whatever we're doing every other week. And it's just, the general rule of thumb, by the way, is that the older the child is, the less frequently they need to switch back and forth. So a teenager would be much happier doing every other week versus a 5-year-old who should be doing 2-2-3. Because when a child is younger, they really need to have more contact with each parent. And also they don't have the capability of communicating with their parents on their own, sending a text message, FaceTiming mom when they're not with mom. And we do FaceTimes every day, but we have a 2.5-year-old. So like sometimes she's into FaceTiming and sometimes she says, I'm very busy, I'm organizing.
Parent who has a child under the age of 6 that is fighting for a 20-minute phone call every day, because I've had this with kids as young as like 18 months. And it's like, I don't want to talk on the phone for 20 minutes, let alone 10, let alone 5. I don't understand
Our
it.
FaceTimes are, I would say, 3 minutes at best for both of us. That's both of us doing that. And that's with us corralling her into the screen. And like, talk to mom, look at mom, talk, like really, we really are very cooperative when we're FaceTiming. We are really trying to get some quality time for the other parent. And it's really hard with little kids.
Yeah.
But that being said, we don't have a set amount of time. We've never had a set amount of time. And maybe later on down the line, we're going to say, we should have set something more strict as she got older.
Right.
That the other parent really, we're just not in that place. But I can see how for a couple that has a harder time getting along, having more parameters for your floor, thinking of your parenting plan as the floor, would be a good idea.
Right. So I've always heard that you need to prove a significant change in circumstances in order to make a change to the time-sharing arrangement. What does a significant change in circumstances look like?
I mean, very significant.
Like
significant
very
is not.
significant.
My
like someone
ex-husband
died.
has a girlfriend living with him. That's not significant. Significant is my ex-husband developed a heroin problem and he's doing drugs around the kids.
Got it. Okay.
I think that my child is being abused in the other household. I mean, it's really, the Florida law really protects parents, which I have feelings about. I think it should be more child-centric, and I'm sure that you have a similar feeling. It really protects time sharing for the parents.
Okay.
And the law wants parents to have 50-50 time sharing.
Right.
And so it is.
But it's flawed. Really, it's like what, I used to be a special education teacher, and the beauty of having a child with an IEP, an individualized education plan, is you're not saying this is the core curriculum, these are the state standards, this is where the child needs to rise up to. It's where can we meet the child where they're at?
Yes.
And that's the whole point of an IEP. What do they need in order to thrive? And when I help clients with parenting plans, I'm looking at it like that. We're not trying to fit the child into this plan. We're trying to make the plan work for the child's life. And just don't understand why, like, we're still in this.
So I guess then the statute's the real floor, right? Your parenting plan can be better than that. And that was something that actually my ex and I said to each other a lot when we were getting divorced. We know what the law is and we can do better for each other. So what is better for the other person?
Right.
And when you start to think about fitting these puzzle pieces together in a parenting plan of what's good for our child now, we have no idea what our child's going to need in the future, but let's try to look forward a little bit. We didn't do a good job of that. And what are our desires around that also? And where's the Venn diagram of those things? So like there's this small Venn diagram. And I think a great way to work on it is to say, here are the things we can agree on. Something that we agreed on is, I'm Jewish, we're raising our child Jewish, my ex is not Jewish, Shabbat is really important. My ex said, you should always have Fridays. Fridays are Shabbat. That's family
that for
time.
you.
So we always have Fridays. There's exceptions. Something's going on. It's my ex's birthday. Fine, no problem. But on the whole, I'm going to end up with 48 Fridays of the year.
Right.
Because she understood that was really important to me. We don't need to fight about it.
Right.
Great. What's something that's really important to her? Sunday night dinner with her family.
Love that.
Sunday night dinners are always hers.
Love that. Where are we at? Okay. I have a few more questions, but I want to say to anybody who is in a situation where you really do believe going to court is the only way to be heard, right? Like, let's say there is evidence of abuse that is kind of hard to prove, or emotional abuse, I know is a big thing for a lot of people, and they're worried about how it's affecting the kids. When is it actually worth going to court?
So when you really think that there's damage happening to your child, and it's not the kind of damage that's parenting you dislike, because that's not the same thing. I don't like that he uses time out. I don't like that she watches TV for 5 hours when she's at my ex's house.
Mm-hmm.
That's a preference.
Right. Just because they do things differently than you doesn't mean it's being done the wrong way. But if this parent is leaving them home alone for hours on end,
Yes.
or using drugs, or what if your child is simply saying, I hate being there, I don't want to go?
So the court's not going to help you.
Right.
That is a decision. And here's the other reality. And I thought this earlier and maybe started to say it and didn't. Most courts are going to make you mediate anyway.
Mm-hmm.
So if you want to save yourself time, energy, money, and you have someone vaguely reasonable on the other side, they don't have to be super reasonable. You can say, I don't want to file something about this. This is going to cost us so much money and so much energy. Can we go see a parenting coordinator together?
Mm-hmm.
We're going to end up there anyway. That's where we're going.
Right.
So we can just shortcut our way there.
Right. That's smart.
Can we sit down with a mediator? A lot of parenting plans or marital settlement agreements have a mediation clause in it.
Right.
We will go to mediation.
And if they don't, it should.
Yes.
Don't forget that, because you will have problems down the line.
The other thing that I tell people is you don't want to be controlled in your household, so you cannot control the other person in their household. You don't like their new girlfriend. Bummer. You don't like how they feed your child. That stinks.
Like many moms, in the beginning, I was like, literally, ugh. And I feel so bad for my ex, because he really, had I just given him the space to, he wasn't doing it wrong. I was just like, does her sunscreen have chemicals in it? And, here's a link to articles about consistent bedtime routines and da-da-da. And had I just taken a step back and realized that I'm not the best parent or know-it-all parent in the world, it comes from a place of fear, and I get it.
Yes.
But one of the best things I've found now, being 8 years into it, is when you give somebody, yes, my daughter was 2 and I was doing the most of everything when we were together. When you give someone the space to do it in their own way,
figure it out.
Not only will they usually rise to the occasion and figure it out, it allows the child to bond with them in a different way. My daughter has her way at dad's house and her way at mom's house. And while they're different, they're both consistent. So she knows what to expect. And he's way cooler with music and movies than I am, right? I'm more of the opposite, and I do other things. But it's it's okay that things are not being done the same, as long as they're done safely and you're not constantly devaluing the way it's being done in the other home. That's the worst for kids.
And I think that a huge gift that you can give your child is not to tell them about the conflict that you're having. Certainly if you say, Daddy wanted to take you to a soccer game, but he's not going to let you come to a brunch with me, and that's really not fair, so you'll be missing out on brunch, but enjoy the soccer game.
Unfortunately, we know this as common sense, but common sense is not so common. If there's nothing else you do as a co-parent, don't do that.
So now if you want to, I'm not doing that, right? Someone who's listening to you, probably not doing that. So what's the next step? I hype up going to my ex's house for starting the day before she goes, Saturday night. Aren't you so excited to see Mom? And she's remarried and her new wife. Tomorrow you're going to see Grammy and Papa at night, and you're going to see your cousins at night. And I am pumped for her. Right. I'm so sad that she's leaving me. I always want her to be with me.
But it's not about you. And you know that. Right.
And she is so happy to go there. And if I was unhappy about her going there, she would be unhappy about it, because she's not even 3 years old yet.
The hardest thing is when you are trying to be that supportive parent and they're like, but I'm not going to have fun there. I don't like it there. And then you're walking a fine line between invalidating their experiences and giving them the tools. And I think it's always worth, having that conversation of what don't you like, but what parts are good.
Right.
Because inevitably you're going to run into that as a co-parent. kids get pissed at their parents. And sometimes it's for serious reasons. Sometimes it's just because someone took the iPad away, So it's walking such a fine line between invalidating them and talking bad about the other parent. But hopefully they won't come to that point, or Millie won't come to that point where she doesn't want to go. I don't think she will.
I mean, I'm sure that she will for both of us. She can be a teenager one day and she's not going to want to talk to either of us.
Right. Then it's not personal. Then it's just like hormonal.
Right. And you hope that you've gotten to a place with your co-parent by the time that you get there. And I was talking to someone over the weekend who was saying that her child, who's now an adult, had a really tough time with her dad and they were divorced when she was a teenager. But that these parents, in putting their children really, really, really first, had bought a second home when they got divorced that was half a mile away. So they were living really close to each other. And when the daughter would have a huge fight with the dad would call the mom and say, like, come pick her up. She wants to come home.
Reasonable.
She doesn't want to be here. And it'd be a couple days and then she'd go back. But that child felt that both parents were on her side. She knew that somewhere inside of her.
Right. Well, that's a unicorn of a situation, but
incredible.
one can only hope. All right. Let's wrap. I mean, I don't think I've had so much good advice from the financial and co-parenting standpoint in one episode before. So I really appreciate.
I want to say one more thing about the financial, because we started talking about the property appraiser. There's a lot of public information. You can go on Sunbiz in Florida, and it will tell you every single officer and director of any business that's registered in Florida.
Okay.
So if you don't know, my husband's a businessman. He does business.
Right.
Okay. His LinkedIn profile will tell you what businesses he's working with.
Okay.
Do
a little digging.
Just Google.
Yeah.
And everyone has a girlfriend. I know it'll come to your mind immediately who that person is, who is so good at stalking.
Her name is Elise. She can find anyone, anything, anywhere in like 30 seconds flat.
Mine is
for
named
me.
Elizabeth.
Okay.
So.
Okay.
But you tell Elizabeth, when I started dating, I'd be like, oh, I'm going on a date with this guy. She's like, did you find it? Did you do that? Did you see it? Court records? And like, she would find everything.
Mm-hmm.
Recruit that friend to help you.
Mm-hmm.
She's your private investigator.
Oh my God. Best advice. Okay. So all in all, whoever's listening to this right now probably got to the end of this episode because they are on the brink of leaving or wanting to leave or not sure where to start. What would you say to someone who just feels so powerless at the point that they're at right now in their lives and they know they want to get a divorce?
The more information you have, the better you're going to feel. And you're going to start, and it feels like you're in a vacuum of information. My husband or my ex-spouse always dealt with our finances. I just put stuff on the credit card. I don't even know what our mortgage payment is.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know anything. Start to pull your own information. You probably had a login to your bank account at some point, and you never just went into it. Go into it. Look at your bank account. How many bank accounts do you have? You can just start looking at things, understanding whose health insurance am I on? Am I on a business's health insurance, or are we self-insured? Starting to understand what all these components are. By the way, you can download the financial affidavit off of the court's website, any court in the country, and then you'll have an idea of all the financial questions that you're going to be asked. So now you have an outline of information. Here are the things I need to think about. Here's a really scary and uncomfortable thing to do. Pull your credit card statements for the last 6 months. Yeah, disgusting, right?
No thanks.
I remember having to give my credit card statements to my lawyer, who's a friend of mine. I was like, don't look too carefully. And I was like giving him excuses. I was like, we were renovating a home. Like,
I know you're a lawyer and I'm sure he's seen it all.
Yeah, he's definitely seen worse than me.
But it's true. Feeling zero control or a lack of power in any situation is just not knowing what to expect. And so the best way to get a little bit more control back and feel like you can tackle something is to know what's coming. So that education piece is huge. It's strategic. Talk to a few lawyers, ask the right questions, know what is available to you, what your state's divorce process looks like, how much time it might take, how backlogged the courts are. All of this is going to help you in terms of taking the next step, knowing how long the process may be in front of you, and feeling like you can finally put one foot in front of the other.
Yeah. I think you said it, but going to see a lawyer, it doesn't mean you're getting divorced. You're information gathering. And we were talking about this sort of at the beginning of our conversation. How often do people come in and don't get divorced? I know when those people are not getting divorced because they walk out and I feel their energy has just come down. The intensity is down. They were just looking for information. Okay, now I know 6 months from now, if my husband hasn't stopped drinking, if we can't get our finances together, if we're still fighting about the kids all the time, now I know what's going to happen. That's my favorite part of my job. It's what I liked as a prosecutor too, was that you're in this situation that you've never been in before. You never wanted to be in this situation. And I have a good idea of what's going to happen to you. And I can hold your hand and walk you through it. And that's the kind of relationship that I want to have with my clients. if that's the type of relationship you want to have with your lawyer, meet with some lawyers and see who you're going to find that with. That's not every lawyer's way that they handle things. I'm a little touchy-feely.
Well, I think that's a benefit because this is a very emotional process. You know, your lawyer's not there to be your therapist, but they should at least have enough heart to hold your hand metaphorically when you're in distress. Okay, so you're on Instagram as the divorce strategist.
I'm the split strategist.
The split strategist. I should know that because
you came up with it?
The split strategist. And your firm is in Boca, but you practice...
We practice in the whole state.
In the whole state. Yeah. Okay, amazing.
And I'm in Miami, so...
Miami girl through and through, former prosecutor. This girl knows what she's doing. Thank you guys for being here, being a part of the Moving On Method. We love bringing you information that helps to inform. This is a lawyer, but this is not your personal legal advice. So always continue to ask questions, be your own best advocate, and we'll see you next time on the Moving On Method. Thanks for being here.
Thank you so much for having me.
Of course.
This was so fun.